Welcome to Pick Me Up Infinite Gacha. In the mobile gacha game infamous for its atrocious difficulty, Loki, ranked 5th globally, blacks out mid-raid. He awakens as Han Islat, a level 1, 1-star hero. To return home, he must lead rookies and heroes to conquer the 100th dungeon floor. A man introduces himself as Mormont Carl, saying he's a mercenary, and another man introduces himself as Lyle, remarking that he doesn't know why they're here. A boy nervously says he's Grit and works at an antique store in Halcyon, admitting that he also doesn't know why they're here. A girl says she's Jenna, who was living in a remote forest and also doesn't know what's going on. Finally, a man tells them he's a farmer named Han Islat, and the same goes for him. The others question how all the 11 people here don't know why they're here, so Lyle thoughtfully remarks that the only thing certain is the fact that they're all from Townier, and wonders if they'll be able to figure something out if they keep conversing with each other, but a girl suddenly appears and asks what they're talking about, ordering them all to get ready to fight since Master is about to open a space-time rift. She introduces herself as Usul, a fairy who managed this entire place, and tells them to stay in line if they don't want to get hurt. Mormont asks how she can be so thoughtless after kidnapping people and declares that he's going to make her spit it all out. Hearing this, she advises him to stop if he doesn't want to die, but he says he's going to teach her some manners, so she instantly beheads him, telling the others that anyone who lays a finger on her will end up a corpse. The others react to this with shock and wonder if he's really dead, and one of them tells the fairy to use her words if there's something she wants. She tells them that what she wants is for them to listen to her orders, fight well and win. Notifications suddenly start popping up, stating that parties have been formed, seeing which she remarks that Masters started operating and tells everyone to get ready before opening up a space-time rift and telling everyone to get in, but Han asks her to tell the Master to summon them a weapon for them to climb the tower since they're 1-stars without even a basic weapon. She admits that's true and asks her Master to summon a weapon for them. Hans tells the others to get themselves a weapon since it's going to be starting soon. Everyone pick out their weapons, and Usul tells 5 of the to enter the door, while Jenna notices Han examining a shield and wonders if she should have gone for that one before asking him if he knows what's going to happen, why they need weapons, where they are, and why there's a fairy with them. He remarks that she really has a lot of questions and says she just has to go into the battlefield and kill all the enemies while figuring out the rest by herself. He suddenly sees that the first party was wiped out on the first floor and tells Jenna that it's their turn next, as she questions why the people that left earlier aren't back yet. A man asks the fairy to leave him out, sign he can't walk because of his arthritis, but Jenna drags him along as the rest slowly enter the rift, with Han confidently leading them. They reach the first floor of a mysterious dungeon, and Han hurriedly tells the others to get ready as the door starts opening. They're suddenly transported to a different world where they're ordered to slay all enemies, so Han tells the others again that they'll die if they don't fight, but sees the 3 guys running away as fast as they can. Jenna stays with him and asks if they'll be able to leave after defeating the goblins, so he tells her to shoot with her bow from afar while he fights the goblins. The goblins start rushing forward as Han inwardly admits he's never wielded a sword or a shield before, and his real name is Han Seojin, who got sucked into this RNG game. Pick Me Up, a mobile game made by Mobius. The goal of the game is to get to the 100th floor of the tower, so you create materials to support and fortify your hero and use strategy and tactics to clear the tower. Until yesterday, he was living an ordinary life. Heroes range from 1-7 stars, and he's a guy with horrible luck, and even with thousands of gacha pulls, he's never gotten a hero over 5 stars once, even though everyone else has them. Unlike other games, Pick Me Up has hardcore rules to it. Even the heroes you put your all into cannot be revived if they die. As he's playing, he suddenly starts receiving a warning, and a player named Level 999 kills his hero before a notification pops up telling him that he's lost. He remarks that this is an obvious system error before suddenly realizing he can't see anything. A screen creates an account and asks him to name his character before accidentally choosing anything and taking him to the tutorial section. A screen explains that he's Han Islat, and that he's in Taunia, the ground where humans live alongside other species which an unknown enemy invades. It tells him to climb the tower if he wishes to escape and to take down the goblins. He confronts a goblin and remarks that this isn't realistic at all before it jumps at him. He manages to block its attack and slashes it with his sword, remarking that his brain couldn't follow the feeling of killing another organism. Later, he wonders if he's in some sort of game before suddenly realizing it's pick-me-up as a door opens, and he pulls a super rare comrade named Shay. He wonders if he got summoned like that too, as Shay asks if he's the one who summoned him, and in a battle, Han remarks that she's strong enough to take down 4 goblins at once. Unlike him, who's never held a sword before, they had an overwhelming stat difference, but he didn't have a problem with it since she was 3 stars higher than him. But the problems started from there. He recognizes Usul from the game and tells her to teleport him back to Seoul, but she just tells him to go inside the doors for synthesis, which he denies and says he'll die. He suddenly gets thrown inside and Shay tells him that the synthesis is starting. He inwardly explains that synthesis means enhancing a hero by sacrificing the other, but the problem lies in the fact that he's a 1-star knight, and she's a 4-star, so a normal player would have 0 reason to let him live and kill off Shay. As synthesis ends, he realizes he was the one chosen in shock as Shay bids him farewell and dissipates. In present day, he remarks that he was able to survive and admits he was lucky Shay died because the master was stupid, which is why this is such a bad game. He's about to tell Jenna to regroup, but suddenly gets attacked by a goblin from behind, so he crushes it with his shield, remarking that a level 999 bug stared at him and laughed right before he got summoned, so it must have been that thing that dragged him here. He menacingly declares that it messed with the wrong person, and a while later, as she's sitting beside the corpses of the dead goblins, Jenna worryingly looks at his missing arm, but he tells her it'll be fine once they go back, remarking that there is almost 0 player control with the combat in this game, because of which the heroes automatically do most of the combat, but this game still has over 1 million downloads worldwide because you can observe this world like a god. He looks over at the eye staring at him from above and menacingly questions if it's having fun, and inwardly says he was also a player who enjoyed pick-me-up because of its item crafting, tactics and strategy, hero ascension with hidden features. He tells the 5th place ranker, Loki, to watch him until the end. He decided to accept that winning is for children, so he won't complain anymore since this is the world of pick-me-up and he was summoned as a 1-star hero from birth. Han explains there are 2 ways for heroes to die, in a battle or by being compounded, and he's only a 1-star who are completely disposable and of the lowest quality. The basic stats are pathetic and the growth rate is low too, so he won't be able to escape the risk of being compounded at this rate and has to become stronger. He has to survive, revenge and return, but all of that is impossible if he doesn't get any stronger. He admits he'll be eaten alive if he doesn't accept things as they are, and tells himself that he has to become mentally stronger too, because he can't survive this place with an unstable mentality. As he's exercising, Jenna asks what he's doing and says she was looking for him since she thought of what she's going to do all night. She aims at a dummy and reveals her father was an archer, telling him that she won't be a burden. Han asks if yesterday was the first time she had to fight to protect her life and notes that she got 4 stats points from yesterday when she reveals it was. He remarks that she's lower than him, but has still got her unique skills, and adds that she moves on from others' death quickly and knows what her goal is before acknowledging her as a diamond in the rough. He agrees to help her, so she holds her hand out and tells him of how her dad always said building connections is very important in life before they shake hands. Han calls for Usul, who says she's not going to answer him no matter how many times he tries, so he asks if he's the only one who can see the stats window above her head. She becomes flustered and nervously says she doesn't know what he's talking about, but he remarks that it says 257 above her head. Seeing her reaction, he confirms that he's the only one who can see the game's messages and asks her of what happens if the master quits, so she tells him to pray that he doesn't before he confirms that the time here and on Earth is different. He tells Jenna that they have to go through the 100 stages of this tower and have to complete the missions the Master gives them. He assures her that Master is probably going to summon other different heroes along with them too, and inwardly remarks that his life hangs on the choices he makes from now, although ultimately, both their lives are in the hands of the Master. After completing a day of training, Han discovers a rule of the world. Daily necessities and food are replenished every day, and if you imagine something you would like to have, it appears in a drawer or closet, although guns and similar things obviously don't work. He adds that the results of training are also very different since there are occasionally herds that have different powers than others that are in the same rank. Although training doesn't increase stats or levels, it refines skill learning and skills in general. The Master will soon place the summons into 3 categories. Mentality, he doesn't care for those who are prone to panicking. Skills, high-ranking heroes are summoned with their skills already learned, but skills of low-ranking heroes are hidden, so Master has to look for them manually. And physical capability, the thing he's trying to improve right now. On the 3rd day of summoning, Master logged in and began summoning. 3 men appear and immediately start questioning what's happening, but Han and Jenna determinedly enter the dungeon and get ready to fight the enemies. The men are shocked upon seeing the monsters around them, so Han tells Jenna to take care of the 2 goblins while he fights the wolves and swiftly kills one. Han whirls around and blocks another wolf before slashing it as well. He sees that the goblins are dead as well and tells Jenna that she's turned it into a real pincushion, asking just how many arrows she shot into it and telling her it's dead. They leave the dungeon after clearing the 2nd floor, but realize they're being sent to the 3rd floor directly before the Master logs out, and Han breathes a sigh of relief. He wonders if it's 1 floor per day and calculates that the Master should be logging in once every 3 days before taking a look at his stats. The newly summoned men ask Jenna why they're being forced to fight, hearing which he looks over at them and remarks that 1-star players are just regular people who've lived a life far removed from the battlefield. He realizes why they're called 1-stars and remembers the 2-star mercenary Mormont, wondering if more combat-focused individuals are ranked higher. He says 1-star mercenaries will go into fear or panic mode as soon as they're thrown into battle, but that isn't the case with 3 stars or up. He wonders if they were summoned with prior knowledge and remarks that Shay probably knew considering her demeanor. Jenna annoyingly asks if he can't help with those guys, so he asks her why he'd bother with useless trash like them when they'll disappear soon anyway. He tells her to forget these guys and that they'll be fighting together next time before one of the men approaches him and says he has a question. Han tells him to keep it to himself, hearing which the guy angrily grabs his collar, so he pummels him in the face and says they were all hopping around in the back while he and Jenna were losing blood out there. Training continued the next day, and they went into weapon training, although it was just him swinging a wooden sword and Jenna with her bow, while the other 3 went around trying to look for an exit. As they're training, Han tries to swiftly block all of Jenna's arrows, but one of them catches his leg. But he tells her not to worry about it because the laws here aren't the same as where they're originally from, since wounds heal quickly here. He tells her to continue training, remarking that pain is good because it reminds him he's alive. They arrive at the square where Usul angrily tells them off, but Jenna remarks that her body's itching for a change after all that training, hearing which Han asks her how she's adapting faster than him, so she coolly says she's made of tough stuff. Listening to the other 3 guys rambling about how they want to go home, Usul angrily beats them up and orders them to get into the dungeon where Han and Jenna start fighting, as he remarks that the 3rd floor isn't a big deal and agrees with Jenna on the fact that it was a bit boring this time once they're done. She looks over at the others and wearily says they still aren't fighting, so he tells her it doesn't matter since he doesn't want to split exp with them anyways, and they won't get any if they don't participate in battle. He notices that the Master is about to spin the Wheel of Fortune, and they get teleported to the 1st floor, seeing which he remarks that it seems like he isn't totally heartless and sees that the goblins are exactly the same as the ones they fought on the 1st floor. They quickly clear the stage with Jenna being the MVP, but the option to attempt floor 1 appears again, seeing which he believes the master isn't going to let them rest easily if they clear the floor out so quickly, so they clear the floors again, after which Jenna wearily admits she's tired as they return from the dungeon. She says she's tired of doing all the work, so he tells her to not worry since it'll all be over after today, since he doesn't think the master is so well off that they can afford to keep these good-for-nothings for long. Synthesis begins, and the system asks the master to choose the heroes, seeing which Han says goodbye to the idiots who couldn't even grab an opportunity when it was handed to them. Han remarks that a lot of chances have been given and adds that the master shouldn't be clueless on the whole thing and should know who fights the monsters on the front lines, who plays an active part, and who does absolutely nothing. Usul tells Jenna and Usulsons to go to the synthesizing room, so Han assures her that she'll be fine. The man questions what he's done and says he was randomly dragged here, but Han says it would have been different if he had at least pretended to fight, so he shakily goes in and tries to break out of the room as he gets dissipated. Jenna questions what happened, so Han tells her that those who are useless are wasted as sacrifices in this place and wonder which one will be with him before Toby gets selected. In the room, he manically thinks he's being sent home, but Han slowly exits the room later and tells the only remaining guy that he was lucky. Jenna wonders if she'll be killed if she becomes useless, but Han just tells her to follow what her father said if she wants to live. The second day, the only remaining guy apologizes and admits he was wrong, assuring them that it will be different from now, so Han throws him a spear and asks if he knows of the basics, explaining that the most efficient way to progress when there are only 3 of them in the party is to have a sword as close-ranged, spear as mid-ranged, and a bow as their long-ranged weapon. He rushes forward to spar with the man and tells him that he learned how to fight by himself, which is why so he should too. As Han begins attacking him from every way, he tells him to be thankful he has someone to spar with since he only had scarecrows as opponents, so the man nervously shuts his eyes and rushes at him, but Han kicks him in the chest and asks if this is all he's got when they're not even putting their lives on the line, telling him that he'd already be dead if there was a monster instead of him. Jenna asks if he isn't being too harsh for the guy's first time, so he says he doesn't want to be caring for anyone and tells her that he'll leave her behind if she can't keep up. He asks the guy if he's got any family, so he reveals that he has a little sister waiting for him. Han remarks that he at least has someone waiting for him and asks what'll happen if he fails to go home, since it'd be really painful to die at the hands of a monster, more painful than being synthesized, telling him to just give up if he can't go on like this. The man angrily grits his teeth, seeing which Han grins and remarks that the spark in his eyes is much brighter than it was before. Later, he unlocks free roam and opens the forge before telling Usul to come out and instructing her to go on the internet, since she should be able to do that if she can interfere with the system. She admits she can, so he asks her why she likes the 5th master, Loki. She says it's because he made the impossible possible and asks how he doesn't know when he's a pick-me-up user, but he says sorry for breaking the news and reveals that he is Loki. Today, our tale is about Han, a seasoned player of the virtual reality game Pick Me Up. One day, as he logged in for his routine gaming session, he found himself unexpectedly transported into the game world. But there's a twist: he is not the master he's used to. Instead, he's been reset to level 1 player. Now, Han must navigate through the game's challenges and clear all 100 floors to return to Earth. Join as we delve deep into this thrilling tale of adventure. Han asks Usul what she likes about Loki. She explains it's because he makes the impossible possible. Han is impressed by her answer, but expresses pity for her. Usul becomes furious, but before she can react, Han reveals that he is Loki. Confused, Usul doubts him, but Han provides his account number, known only to the account holder and server managers. He even offers his Google account information. Usul checks and discovers that Han is indeed Loki. This revelation shocks her, and she's thrilled to have finally met the infamous Loki. Usul requests Han's autograph and excitedly declares her intention to become the top member of the Ragnar Loki Club. Han is puzzled as he hasn't heard of the club before. Usul explains it's a fan club dedicated to Master Loki, and members can climb ranks by obtaining Loki's autograph. Then, realizing her earlier rudeness, Usul apologizes for her behavior. Han obliges, signing his autograph. Usul then asks what would happen to Niflheim without him. Han admits he has no idea, revealing that Niflheim is the name of the lounge in his account, boasting 13 floors and a capacity of 20,000. Most of the buildings were at level 18, indicating it's the in-game stage, and Han was the master of this world. Usul isn't pleased with his decision to stay in this world instead of sorting out the other one. Han urges Usul to let him go back and help sort out Niflheim, but she feels powerless as just a middle-level admin who gets pushed around. Han switches topics, asking Usul about the world they're in. He assumes the summoned heroes aren't AI, and Usul agrees, explaining they are humans from different worlds. Usul explains that Master Whatever doesn't know that they were summoning humans because he was simply a player who enjoyed the thrill of the game. Since the heroes are just products of entertainment, they encounter various dangers. Han questions Usul about whether he will return to Earth when he reaches the 100th stage, but she claims not to know. Han remains skeptical of her answer. He then asks who summoned him to the present Earth, but Usul evades the question, suggesting he'll figure it out as he progresses through the towers. Han asks Usul how far into the Master's authority she can go. She explains that currently, her role involves supporting them by providing assistance in opening and closing places and supporting their decisions. Han also inquires about the Master's lounges, and Usul clarifies that while they are all somewhat different, the basic structure is usually the same. Han concludes that the fact that there exist 100 million worlds within the Mobius summon system, which supposedly summons an infinite number of heroes with thousands of patterns, was a lie, and they are actually real humans. Additionally, Han realizes that roguelike, a system believed to have created infinite content, has 100 million individual worlds as well. Han realizes that all the careless decisions he took for heroes have been a death sentence for others. He calls Usul and tells her that if she wants to climb the tower, she has to listen to what he has to say. He starts telling her about Jenna, describing her as a genius who has grown at an unthinkable speed that can't be considered one star. Despite never having held a dagger before, Jenna has quickly figured out the principles. On the other hand, Eren appears sluggish, and there's a risk of him dying if this persists. After the private conversation with Usul, they head to the training field. Jenna informs Han that Eren hasn't been very active since she defeated him. Han instructs Jenna to follow him out of the field. As Jenna starts following Han, Usul pushes her away, asserting that Jenna has no right to follow him directly because she isn't his #1 follower. A brief argument ensues between Usul and Jenna as they both vie to become Han's #1 subordinate. Han takes Usul to the storage room and asks her to open it up. She does so, and they acquire some items added to their inventory. Jenna questions Han about his intentions with the items they obtained from the storage. Han responds that he's tired of using a worn-down steel blade. From the conversation with Usul, Han had discovered that he is a half-master, half-hero. Being half-master, he uses the items obtained from the storage. Han crafts a manual. A notification appears, prompting him to select the puzzle difficulty level. Opting for the extreme hell difficulty, despite Usul's displeasure due to its triple penalty, Han explains that the rewards in the game for masters are highly rewarding. He receives a puzzle to solve in order to obtain his new weapon and continue the battle. Successfully completing the puzzle, Han crafts a well-forged longsword. The longsword is sturdy, light, and sharp, with the materials skillfully fixed despite being loose initially. Han creates more weapons like the balanced shortbow, sharp long spear, and hard iron shield. However, all the weapons he crafts are of C rank, seemingly due to poor quality materials. Usul asks him if he wants to make more weapons, but Han declines, fearing that it would arouse suspicion from the master. It's time to fight for 4th floor's duty-type conquest goal and kill all enemies while they attack. Eren becomes too excited initially, overwhelmed by fear, but he manages to gather himself. With Han and Jenna's support, fighting becomes easier for him. They defeat the enemies and successfully clear the floor. With Eren leveling up and Han being the MVP, they receive useful rewards for their efforts. After the fight, they pause for a discussion. Eren expresses concern that the Master might kill him because he didn't contribute much on the battlefield. However, instead of punishment, he finds himself added to the Master's favor. Jenna comments on Eren that following Subordinate 1, Subordinate 2 has grown up as well, but Han doesn't see him merely as a subordinate. As Han walks away, he mentions that his subordinate number 1 would typically be infamous Cirrus from Niflheim. He describes Cirrus as one of the 5 members of Party 1, boasting 6 stars and level 99 with 5 divine weapons that he personally crafted and plastered with ultimate skills. Han tells himself that he may meet them someday as he climbs the tower. He says as this is an idle game, Submaster Cirrus will do fine on his own, and then mentions that Unit is there as well just in case Cirrus needs help. Han notes that Cirrus and Unit were so intelligent and clear-minded that he was beginning to doubt whether they were AI. Meanwhile, in another world, Cirrus tries to convince Unit not to go out for an investigation, but Unit remains adamant. Cirrus decides she won't accompany Unit and leaves the investigation entirely to her. Unit agrees, stating she'll handle everything, including their master's whereabouts. After the heroes finish the battle on the last floor, they receive upgrades from the master. Their lodging levels up to level 2, increasing the limit on heroes. Additionally, the restaurant in the lodging has been completed, and high-quality food will now be provided for the heroes. The training center has been leveled up to level 2, increasing the efficiency of hero training. The weapons storage, 3-piece accessory buildings, smith woodworking shop, and metal processing shop are to be combined into an equipment workshop. The square has been evolved to level 2 by the master, who upgraded the area where the heroes live. This upgrade makes it feel like he's playing with real people rather than a bunch of zeros. Han explains the upgrade to the rest of the heroes, mentioning that the waiting rooms improve as they ascend the tower. In Pick Me Up, obtaining gems isn't as straightforward as completing missions or participating in events. There are few events that offer a significant number of gems. As they discuss this, a notification announces the master starting a 10x summoning. Eren expresses surprise, and Han explains it's a housewarming invitation after finishing house decorations. Han outlines 2 summoning methods, regular with gold and advanced with gems, more enticing for spending money. The summoned heroes appear confused, questioning their whereabouts and the situation. Han grows tired of their questions and points his sword at the man who claimed to have been at home moments ago. Startled and afraid, the man asks who they are. Han commands them to quiet down, stating he won't explain things to them at the moment. He tells them to survive on their own and promises to explain everything to those who manage to survive. Usul steps in, seeking individuals with specific skills, carpenters, blacksmiths, tanners, and cooks. However, her efforts are disrupted by interruptions. One man demands an explanation, while others express confusion or make derogatory remarks. Han intervenes, instructing Usul to silence them. Jenna questions Han about Usul's actions, and he clarifies that roles are being assigned due to new facilities. He suggests that the deceased heroes might have had other careers, prompting the need for organization. As system notifications prompt the formation of parties and Party 2 emerge, Zid, Hansen, John, and Teddy. It is mentioned that for those without any specialty, they must rely on their physical abilities, as those who are unskilled feeding them would be a waste. The master will separate the useful ones, and he is weeding out the freshly summoned 1-stars by sending them into the dungeon. Usul urges them to hurry and enter the dungeon, warning that failure to adapt will result in death by natural selection, likely at stage 1. Once everyone is inside, the dungeon door closes, followed shortly by a system notification announcing John's death, honoring his courage. Han points out that one person has already perished. Jenna questions him about whether he should have explained better, to which he responds that there's no need to explain to those who died on the lowest floors. Another system notification appears announcing Teddy's death, with his bravery to be remembered. Han notes that 2 have died already, but 2 have also survived. Usul then calls out the other newly summoned heroes, Dika, Deckard, Sigler, and Chloe. Despite their apprehension, Eren steps forward, declaring he'll fight with them. Usul protests, saying it's not his fight, but Eren insists. Han intervenes, telling Usul to let Eren join the party as he also lacks combat skills, making his inclusion not so bad. Another system notification announces Teddy's death, making it 2 casualties and 2 survivors. Usul calls out the other newly summoned heroes, Dika, Deckard, Sigler, and Chloe. Eren steps forward to fight despite Usul's protest. Han intervenes, allowing Eren to join. The system asks if the party will accept Eren, and he joins. Han advises Eren not to set a precedent. Jenna complains about the food, and Han reassures her. The system shows the master their displeasure. After a while, the system notification pops up, indicating that the stage is clear. Han notes that nobody died and asks Eren how many zombies he killed. Eren replies that he killed 1, and Han commends him. Jenna, upon their arrival, expresses her admiration, noting that the building has definitely improved, appearing larger and more refined. She excitedly wonders if they can now eat expensive food since there's a dining room. Han responds that they can if the master doesn't consider them useless, which excites Jenna. To her, it feels like they've been served the highest grade of lamb steak. In contrast, Eren is content with turkey. Han remains indifferent, reminding them they'll be discarded if deemed useless. They are served potatoes again, and their expressions darken at the sight. The chef mentions condiments, but only potatoes are available. Han grumbles about the chef's incompetence, frustrated by his claims. He checks Dolph's stats, level 1 novice with no skills. Han becomes slightly angry, realizing Dolph lacks cooking skills. He scans the group to see if anyone else has cooking abilities and notices Chloe. Surprised, Han asks Chloe if she can cook. Stammering, she confirms, and Han decides she'll be the cook from now on. The system notification appears, asking if Chloe should replace Dolph as the cook, and Han selects yes. Desperate, Dolph tries to plead his case, but Han sees through it, warning him that lying won't work again. He emphasizes it's the last time he'll overlook such behavior, leaving Dolph visibly frightened. Chloe's cooking impresses Jenna, who finds it delicious and marvels at the variety of flavors potatoes can offer. Interrupting their meal, Han urges them to listen carefully, warning that he won't repeat himself, and explains everything to them. After a little discussion, Han explains that Enoch is the carpenter and Chloe is the cook, but they can also assist in other ways. Dolph stammers, suggesting he could be a carpenter too, but Han warns him against lying again, threatening to recommend him as the first sacrifice to the synthesis. This silences Dolph. Han explains that non-combat roles offer higher chances of survival, but they shouldn't get complacent as spots are limited. If a more skilled person is summoned, they might end up with a combat role. From the second day, the simple life slowly began to change. Han notes that only 3 of them, Zid, Hansen, and Dika, who are 20 and under, join the training. Jenna notices everyone's fear and their search for refuge. Han expresses boredom with sparring with Eren and suggests a change. He easily defeats them and reflects on Eren's influence, noting they've started calling him boss like Eren. Jenna's archery skill reaches level 5, her dagger skill level 2. Eren's spear skill is at level 2 but hasn't progressed. Despite diligent training, he hasn't gained a useful skill. Han observes the younger trainees' synchronized spirits, all at level 1 swordsmanship. Zid acknowledges Han's strength, to which Han attributes his higher level. When Dika inquires about his level, Han assures them they will find out soon. He privately admits they're better than those hiding away. The free 10x pull happens again, this time without Han's intervention. Eren and the others handle it, with only 1 casualty during the thinning process. Jenna notices more arrivals with a smile, but Han warns her that more will come. When Jenna questions the master's delay in advancing to the 5th floor, Han explains to himself the significant challenge of the next stage. He notes that one party member hasn't been selected yet. Reflecting on the increasing difficulty every 5 stages, Han divides the team. Jenna, Han, Eren, Zid, Hansen, and Dika form the combat team, while Enoch and Chloe join the support team. On the 4th floor, Zid and Hansen take the lead with shields raised and swords in hand, while Dika positions himself in the middle with a spear. Despite expressing their reliance on Han, he reassures them, emphasizing their role as shields. They advance, with Zid and Hansen successfully blocking attacks with their shields while Dika strikes from behind with his spear. Han observes their teamwork, opting not to join the fight to ensure they gain formation practice. The system notification confirms the stage's completion, with Zid and Hansen leveling up and Jenna earning the MVP title. As Hansen and Zid exchange a high five, Han reflects on the upcoming challenges of the 5th floor, uncertain about missions he might struggle with alone. Despite his concerns, the team remains optimistic. In the second 10 pull, they acquire a blacksmith and a tanner, boosting equipment production. Collaborating with the carpenter, they focus on crafting E-rank swords and shields, improving the new hero's survival chances. Meanwhile, the main party receives higher quality gear. 3 people, including Dolph, who lied about his title, are synthesized. Han emphasizes the need for vigilance going forward. After a few days, Zid complains about repeatedly returning to the 4th floor and expresses a desire to progress to the next floor. Later, upon arrival at 5th floor, they discover an abandoned, ruined village. Eren notices the absence of monsters, prompting Han to suggest exploring the city first. As they enter, Han observes the emptiness, devoid of both monsters and civilians. Zid's scream draws Han's attention to a corpse, a skeleton with dried bloodstains and torn clothes. Eren is spooked, questioning the eerie atmosphere, while Jenna remarks on the stark difference from their previous missions. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Han swiftly instructs Jenna to climb the clock tower for better visibility. She ascends and reports seeing the city but hesitates before expressing her concern. Eren presses for details, prompting Jenna to reveal that there are numerous goblins outside the city, all converging toward them. Han immediately asks for a count, and Jenna, visibly frightened and stammering, estimates there are thousands of them. On floor 5, the mission category is survival, with the goal to survive the horde of enemies. Eren shouts, noting the presence of 1,000 zombies, while Jenna expresses a wish that it wasn't the case. Han instructs Jenna to get down for now. Eren, spooked, questions Han about their actions, to which Han reassures him, explaining the mission's goal of survival and the need to stay alive for a certain duration. As they attempt to seek refuge in the buildings, but find themselves unable to enter, Han quickly adapts, directing them to change their location swiftly. They all begin running. Eren questions the duration they need to stay alive, to which Han responds that they must survive for 10 minutes after the enemies arrive. Eren finds this feasible, while Han wears a serious expression as a system notification appears, indicating they have to survive for 30 minutes. Han reflects that the probability of a party surviving a survival mission from past floors was 9%. Han directs them to avoid the main streets and head to the alley, which they agree to. Noting the lack of tall buildings and the danger of low-rise structures, they reach a dead end and form a defensive circle. Despite Zid's query about a better location, Han confirms there are no alternatives and urges them to proceed. They agree and prepare to confront the enemy, pledging to try their best. Han assigns tasks and emphasizes fighting in turns without assistance to conserve energy. Jenna is instructed to use her arrows sparingly. They agree to create a barricade and acknowledge the consequences of failure. As the first goblin approaches and detects their scent, it emits a loud shriek, alerting the others and initiating the timer. Unable to finish the barricade, Han swiftly dispatches the first goblin and warns the others of the impending horde. Endless goblins rush toward them, prompting Han to direct the others to create a wall with the goblin corpses. They comply, and Han continues to eliminate the goblins before more arrive from behind. Jenna offers her assistance, ready to act if Han grows weary. Han maintains his blocking and stabbing pattern, urging the goblins to act foolishly as he dispatches another one. When Eren asks again about surviving for just 10 minutes while killing goblins, Han responds with a question, asking if he has ever lied to him. With 26 minutes left, Han reassures himself that they can't die in a place like this. The party, consisting of Jenna, Zid, and Hansen, fights tirelessly, but the goblins keep coming. Time passes, but the onslaught continues unabated. Han raises his voice, instructing Zid to switch places with Hansen. Despite Zid's exhaustion, he insists he can continue, but Han sharply tells him to listen and obey. Han is troubled by Zid's lack of stamina. Not only is he low level, but his techniques are also lacking. Han emphasizes the need for efficiency, advising Zid to conserve his energy and use only one slash per monster. With frustration, Han observes the seemingly endless wave of weak goblins charging ahead without fear. He orders another switch in positions to mitigate the danger, instructing Jenna to assist Zid and collect her arrows for reuse. Jenna complies, acknowledging she's been waiting for the instruction. Han directs her to eliminate the goblins that breach their defenses, and she begins headshotting the incoming goblins. As the chaos ensues, Eren questions Han's earlier claim of only needing to survive for 10 minutes. Han calmly corrects him, stating it has only been 5 minutes since the onslaught began. Jenna, while pulling her arrow from a dead goblin, mutters about their persistence. Suddenly, Zid screams as his arm is severed, causing a system notification about his bleeding status. Han swiftly orders Hansen to switch places with Zid, urging Zid to hold on and not worry about himself. However, Hansen hesitates after seeing Zid's injury, prompting Han to scold him for his hesitation. Another system notification informs them that Zid has fallen into a state of fear, reducing all his stats by 30%. Han slashes through the goblins and kicks Zid in the face, urging him to pull himself together and stop jeopardizing the group's safety. Zid apologizes, and Han orders Jenna to stop the bleeding while reprimanding Zid for his actions. With some encouragement, Zid regains his composure, agreeing to switch places with Hansen. Han continues to fight off the goblins, criticizing the quality of Hansen's sword and asking Zid if he can fight with it. Zid assures him he can, and they switch positions, with Han instructing Hansen to repair his sword. Han anticipates this necessity, knowing that although the sword is an improvement over the F-rank old iron one, it's still just a normal iron sword. Blades by using their shields. He orders Jenna to switch with Eren, emphasizing the importance of resting while they can. Despite Eren's objections, Jenna quickly takes over, urging Eren not to be stubborn. Han urges them to hang on for just 3 more minutes, feeling the weight of time dragging on. He instructs Jenna to switch with Eren again, but she hesitates, prompting Eren to reassure her that even a short break is valuable. As Hansen swaps positions with Zid, who appears on the verge of collapse, Han directs Jenna to focus her arrows on Hansen's side, despite her reluctance due to the limited number of arrows left. As the battle intensifies, Zid is suddenly stabbed in the chest, causing him to collapse. Jenna swiftly dispatches the goblin responsible, but it's too late for Zid, who falls with a fatal wound to the chest. In the mobile gacha game infamous for its atrocious difficulty, Loki, ranked 5th in the world, loses consciousness while raiding the dungeon. Waking up as Han Islat, a level 1, 1-star hero, he must lead newbie masters and heroes to clear the 100th floor. Join the hard-carrying Master Loki as he refuses to accept defeat in this epic journey back to Earth. Zid suddenly falls down as a message above him states his condition is critical, while Han angrily rushes forward and Jenna shakily wonders if she should pull the blade out as Hansen wearily tries, asking Zid to just tag out for him for 30 seconds, and Han wildly keeps fighting the goblins. He tells Hansen to take the left passageway while he takes care of this area. Hansen worryingly inquires about Zid, so Han furiously says he's resting because he's tried and orders him to shut up and move as Zid passes away. Han tells Jenna that Zid's already dead and to help him out, so she starts fighting the goblins as well and questions how much longer they've got left. He says he can't look at the time and just orders her to keep killing as they start leveling up and their skills awaken. But he tells her that the awakenings don't mean anything if they die. Hansen starts bleeding and shakily asks Han to save him as a horde of goblins slowly approach him and start attacking. But Han quickly tells Jenna and Eren to come with him and to mourn Zid and Hansen once they've survived this, as Hansen also passes away. Jenna asks if they're going to die here, so he tells her to not say stuff like that and to climb the wall behind them. She asks if he's telling her to run away by herself, to which he hurriedly questions what she's saying and urges her to climb up so that he can follow behind her. The goblins suddenly arrive, so he tells Eren and Jenna to not use stab since they can't afford killing only one in an attack. Jenna quickly climbs up, so he orders Eren to follow her, but as he grabs her hand, a goblin suddenly attacks his leg, so Han tells Jenna to not let go of Eren's hand and furiously stabs it before telling Eren he's going to cut his leg as well. Eren screams out in pain and starts bleeding, so Han tells Jenna to get him up and realizes the goblins are stepping over themselves to attack them, so he quickly tells her to use Eren's spear and just stab anything that comes close to them. He warns her that there's nowhere else to run to if they lose here before she accidentally drops the spear. He tells her to just kick them with her feet before she desperately says there are too many of them and they can't hold out any longer. He desperately tells her to just hold out for 30 seconds and to just trust him once, inwardly remarking that he isn't lying. A goblin suddenly climbs up, so he rushes to kill it, but another one stabs him with a dagger, so he rushes forward in rage, but the goblin swiftly rips the sword out of his torso as Han starts screaming in pain. Han falls down in pain as a message appears, stating that he's bleeding and will start losing health at regular intervals as Jenna gets attacked, and the same message appears for her. Facing the army of monsters, Han despairingly admits it's over and questions if he's going to die here, frustratingly acknowledging that this is just the 5th floor and calling it unfair since he doesn't understand why he's struggling so much, and says this would have never happened on Earth, wondering why it had to be him before suddenly opening his eyes in a fit of rage and slashing through a goblin's head. He declares that it isn't over yet because they're only on the 5th floor, and says there's no way that he'll die at a place like this before swiftly cutting through a pair of goblins that jump at him. As the goblins' dismembered body parts fall down, he tells the other monsters to bring it on and awakens the berserk skill. He inwardly remarks even breathing is hard. His body is screaming in pain, but Jenna wearily looks at him as he furiously asks the goblins if they want to kill him and tells them to bring it on, declaring that he will not break even if he falls while rushing forward and slashing through a horde of goblins at once. He continues his rampage and keeps wildly killing goblins left, right and center before his sword finally breaks and the goblins keep attacking. But he declares that even if it breaks, he will never stop. He rushes towards the goblins with the broken sword just as the timer hits 0 and the army of monsters suddenly immobilizes. Jenna looks around in shock and a goblin's claws stop just short of Eren's face as a message appears, stating that they have cleared the stage and have leveled up, labeling Han as the MVP. Another message appears and gifts them 5,000 gold, an iron ore, 3 leather, and 2 planks before congratulating them for successfully clearing the 5th floor and stating that the daily dungeon has now become accessible, telling them to gather materials and strengthen their heroes in the training room. The 3 wearily drop their weapons as Jenna collapses on the floor and Han heavily sighs. Jenna slowly starts crying tears of joy and laughing before asking Han if he can give her a hand since she can't get up because of not having any strength. Han grabs her hand as she asks if they survived, which he confirms and remarks that it seems like they really were able to clear it since the waiting room is going up. She worryingly says it's already so difficult when they're only on the 5th floor, but Han interrupts her and admits there was something different this time and explains it was systemized this time, so even if one of them failed to fulfill their role, they would all die, so they wouldn't have been forced to fight so desperately if he had raised Zid and Hansen a bit more. Picking up his broken sword, he remarks that it won't be that hard to survive if the party is well made, and they were just unlucky that it happened when they were in their weakest state. She slowly says she knows that and looks down. He wearily supports Eren, and they exit the dungeon, seeing which Deeker runs up to them and happily praises them for their work, informing them that Chloe has prepared some delicious food and asking if Zid and Hansen are in there. Han plainly confesses that they died, but he doesn't understand at first, so he confirms that they're dead, shocking him. Usul calls for them, announcing that the master is calling and telling them to come out, so Han slowly walks off with Jenna and Eren, leaving the others speechless. Han wearily flops down on his bed, admitting that he has no intention of being sentimental over someone's death, since death will become an everyday occurrence as long as he's part of the front line climbing up the tower. Thinking back on it, he wonders if he got the Berserk skill, remarking that composure and Berserk can't exist together, 100% believing it's a bug. Composure, which lets him hold on to his sanity, and Berserk, which lets go of his sanity in exchange for increased power. It's probably related to how he's both a master and a hero. He admits he doesn't know yet, but doesn't want to think about it either, at least for today. He decides to just rest for today, since things will get a whole lot busier starting tomorrow. The next day, Jenna's fervently training, as Han says she's always later than him because she sleeps late, and asks if something happened. She energetically says she doesn't want to die, and seeing her, Han remarks that she has gained some skills during the combat yesterday. On top of that, she has talent and puts in effort, while Eren, on the other hand, went through all that trouble but wasn't able to gain a single skill. Han gets down to exercising and says his growth is limited to 5, which is a growth value that one would expect from a 3-star, since he'll reach level 10 soon, which is the max level for a 1-star. He should prepare to aim for an advancement to 2-star. He suddenly stops and asks Jenna what she's doing as she's patting his abs. She remarks that it looks tasty, so he tells her to move her hand and puts on his shirt as he pouts and says it's not like it'll dull or anything, to which he says it will, and inwardly admits that the more he sees her, the less he can believe her, wondering how she can act shamelessly like this after going through all that happened yesterday. Jenna looks around and says it doesn't look like Eren's coming, so he tells her to leave him be because he's probably holed up in his room since he was close with the trio. She thinks about it and says normally it would be fine for him to wake up early and train, to which Han says it was the same for Dika, and that those two were passionate about training, unlike the other guys who do it half-heartedly. He annoyingly looks over at the others practicing with dummies and remarks that those guys are too busy trying to avoid getting synthesized, so they only swing like they mean it when Master logs in. He adds that Zid and Hansen also had potential and would have been very useful if he nurtured them a little, so the 2 that died yesterday should have been one of these guys instead of them. Jenna nervously says they should just continue their training before Eren arrives and apologizes for being late. Looking at him, Han questions if he's a sinner and why his expressions like that, so he answers that those 2 might be alive right now if he was a bit stronger, but Han says they died because they were weak and says that's all there is to it, inwardly noting that it's already been a month since he came to this world, which means it's probably just over 10 days in Earth time. He remarks that he was able to figure out Waitiver's log in patterns during that time with his observations. The time dilation between the waiting room and the Earth is about a factor of 3, since Waitiver logged in 3 times per day, in the morning, afternoon, and night. For reference, the time during combat in the stages flowed at real-time speed, so if they had the 3 times difference as well, it would have been an hour and a half instead of 30 minutes, meaning they would have been completely annihilated without a double. Usul suddenly appears and tells everyone to be like their excellent Han, succeeding in a survival mission on the 5th floor using only trash, as expected of the Master of Masters. Jenna sneakily asks Han why she's suddenly acting like that, so he lamely answers that it's a trade secret. Usul suddenly whirls on the other guys and warns them that she won't let them go if they're lying around and sleeping in their residences while she's suffering like this, but Han tells her to leave them be since they come out whenever she calls them anyway. Party 4 gets created with Han, Jenna, Louis, Jeffrey, and Owen. Asul announces that these 5 will go into the space-time rift. Surprised, Jenna says she hasn't even seen them, but Han tells her to not worry since it won't be as difficult this time. They head to the door to the daily dungeon where a man asks Han if they're with him, so he asks for his name. The man introduces himself as Owen and worryingly remarks that he doesn't think they'll be of enough help with him around, so Han tells him to not worry since they won't be fighting. They enter the daily dungeon Kendit Forest and Jenna wonders where the enemies are and stops Han from pulling her cheeks. He tells her that this is just a daily dungeon where they're supposed to collect materials so they can think of it as a shopping basket. They start collecting items, but Han tells Jenna to come with him so that they can hunt. While she butchers the deer, he goes off on his own and finds Queen of the Forest, a rare monster that appears on the days of the forest dungeon, and the low-grade attribute stone it has is used as a material for advancement. He rushes forward and swiftly kills the other deer before facing it and telling it to come at him since all her boyfriends are dead. The other guys realize there's a monster near them in shock, but another one corrects him and realizes it's Han who slowly walks towards them with the head of the Queen of the Forest. Jenna asks how a deer can be this big, so Han tells her to help him out since he's tired as hell before she says she's caught 2 deer and a boar. She recognizes that it's a female despite having a horn, which he's surprised to hear, and sees that she suddenly goes through another awakening, remarking that her advancement seems to be going smoothly. They later cook the meat and Jenna happily says they look very excited before he tells her to come with him if she's done eating. Daily Dungeon is a system where the location of the dungeon changes depending on the day of the week, and today was Sinmeral Plateau, a dungeon where you can acquire other attribute stones. They arrive at the Sinmeral Plateau where Jenna asks if she can really get stronger if they gather materials, so he says she needs to gather objects named attribute stones if she wants to get stronger, so they're here to get them. Jenna looks at the view and remarks that it looks really nice as Han notices a plant of life and thinks he's only seen them in a drawing and says they're the main ingredients for making recovery potions, deciding to pick them up later. They swiftly defeat a gigantic wolf, after which Jenna happily says they aren't having any trouble defeating a wolf, and Han tells her to hurry up since they don't know if the others will smell its blood, so she quickly gets down to cleaning it and asks what they should do with its claws and fangs, to which he tells her to tear them off and keep them separate, examining a low-grade wind attribute stone. Jenna slowly says it's peaceful here, so he tells her to say that after wiping the blood off herself, but she adds that she wishes it could always be like this, hunting and gathering plants, having food and a place to sleep. She suddenly says it would be paradise if the master wasn't here, hearing which Han becomes flustered since he's the former master. She says she wishes the master would never come, hearing which Han inwardly wonders if the guys in Niflheim also thought like that, remarking that it would be better if the master didn't come. He asks if she doesn't want to fight and says fighting on the front line isn't everything since she doesn't even need to worry about being synthesized. Jenna asks if he's going to give her another place and says there's nothing she can't do if the situation gets better, before asking why he isn't going to the other roles, hearing which he starts laughing. A few days later, the party teleports at an unknown location, being joined by Dika this time, who says he looks forward to working with them, and Aaron remarks that this doesn't look like a daily dungeon, so Han says it's a search quest which rarely appears. Aaron asks him if this is the same as the 5th floor, but Han tells them to not raise their voice and stay low, remarking it seems like it's clear, so they'll finish this successfully if they just fulfill the conditions. They notice 3 goblins with a blowhorn, meaning they've got allies as backup, so Jenna says there's a goblin village with around 100 of them, to which he says it seems like a trap, and they'll be ambushed if they rush in without proper recon. He tells Jenna to shoot down a goblin and orders Aaron to take one down with a spear before instructing Dika to support them and stay on guard, so the 2 kill the goblins and Han beheads the final one, remarking that he can't let it call for reinforcement as it rushes to inform its allies. They clear the stage and are rewarded with 5,000 gold as Dika asks if it's over, but Han says they aren't done yet and decides to go investigate a bit. inwardly remarking that a hint for the next stage is going to be given, so there's no way it'll be a single quest since it requires them to explore, and although it's formed randomly, it's not like he can't predict anything. He looks at the goblin village and wonders if it's a large goblin habitat before one notices something from the gap in the barrier, but Han's already disappeared. They return to the dungeon where Jenna asks why he ran off by himself, so he explains that he wanted to look around the area, thinking that there are quite a few cases where hints are given in the main dungeon. The chain quests that start from an exploration are called streams, and understanding a stream is also a skill masters need. He frustratingly adds that he doesn't know if what he saw was conveyed properly for Waitiver, and it shouldn't be time for a stream to appear yet before Chloe worryingly tells him there's trouble since some weird people have come here. He says this isn't the first time weird people have come here, but she says these ones are a little different since they're carrying weapons and their atmosphere is weird as well. Hearing this, he says premium hero summoning is finally here as a connection to the group Maned Wolf Mercenaries is formed. Han calls for Usul and asks her if the master spent money, which she agrees to, and reveals that he bought the newbie portent package that's worth $50. He says that makes it 2,500 gems and 50,000 gold, and remarks that these guys were brought here through premium summons. If it was him, he would have pulled for them before the 5th round and put them in a party. He tells Chloe to return to the kitchen and assures her that they won't eat her up, and since they're just unusual before dismissing the party. Jenna energetically greets a woman who introduces herself as Edith Callan before Jenna introduces Han to her by saying he's a bit blunt is kind-hearted, so he tells her to shut up and inwardly remarks that she's a 3rd star who came with a class and is a thief type with low strength and vitality but high dexterity who uses her short swords more than her bow. As they sit down, Edith is surprised to see that Han knows about this place and says she only knows she was summoned here to fight, but her head hurts if she tries to remember more than that. She reveals she was part of the wolf-maned mercenaries and worked in Halcyon, but woke up here. She and her teammates suddenly gets called by Usul, and one of them wildly leaves Chloe's bar, declaring that he can't wait to meet the guy who got all this meat. He heads to the town square where the maned wolf party is formed, and the other guys complain to Han about how something about them feels off, but he asks if they expect him to protect them and reminds them of how they used to take training so lightly and didn't even bother learning skills from Chloe or the artisans, angrily telling them to get lost before he gets angry.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.